Greetings from the Xi Delta Omega chapter. We would like to share our history with you. Mildred Gore Stansberry supplied the impetus for the chartering of a chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated in Harford and Cecil counties. Mildred was born in Helen, West Virginia, where she attended Bluefield State College in Bluefield, West Virginia. She held the office of parliamentarian at the time the chapter was chartered. She was recognized by the chapter on April 30th, 1999, for 50 years of active membership in Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. She became an Ivy Beyond the Wall on July 10th, 1999. Cynthia P. Laurie was recruited by Mildred Stansberry to further explore the possibility of chartering a chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated in Harford and Cecil counties. In fact, many of the interest group meetings were held at Cynthia's residence. Cynthia was born in Havre de Grace, Maryland, and graduated from Morgan State College, now Morgan State University. She was the first chapter president. Cynthia currently resides in Havre de Grace, Maryland. Cynthia Adams, a native of Huntsville, Alabama, came to Harford County for employment at the U.S. Army's Aberdeen Proving Ground location in Maryland. She graduated from Alabama A&M University in Huntsville, Alabama. Cynthia, already a member of the sorority, was approached by Carol Ellis to join the interest group to support the long process of chapter chartering to fruition. Cynthia held the position of public relations when the chapter was chartered. She currently resides in Huntsville, Alabama. Kelly Adams Tate was a military dependent. Upon graduating from Jackson State University in 1981, she moved to Harford County to be with her parents, stationed at Aberdeen Proving Ground. Kelly became associated with the interest group through the efforts of Carol Ellis. Kelly Adams Tate held the position of official hostess. She currently resides in Houston, Texas. Carolyn Mills Allen, hailed from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, received her Bachelor's of Arts degree from North Carolina Central University in Durham. Caroline's life as an Army wife began in 1978 and ended in 1998. She joined the interest group and immediately following chapter chartering held the position of membership chairperson. Carolyn currently resides with her husband in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Autherine Nixon Bishop was born in Washington, D.C., and graduated from the Maryland State College, which is now the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. Autherine was employed by the Harford County Department of Social Services until her retirement in 2002. She currently resides in Fayetteville, Georgia, and held the position of corresponding secretary when the chapter was chartered. Doris Carey was born in Buckingham County, Virginia. Doris graduated from Carter G. Woodson High School, which was named after the father of African American history, who was also a native of her hometown. Doris graduated from St. Paul's College in Lawrenceville, Virginia. She later married an Army officer and traveled with him to many states and countries. Doris and her husband attended various functions while stationed at Aberdeen Proving Ground, and of course she met the interest group of recruiters. She has achieved over 50 years of active membership in Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and she is still very active in the chapter and in the community. Doris currently resides in Joppatown, Maryland with her husband, Richard. Cleo Johnson Cole was born in Whitehall, Maryland. Cleo graduated from Morgan State University, where she was initiated into Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated in 1952. Cleo was employed by the Harford County Library System until her retirement in 1998. The recruiters were very busy, and Cleo was not exempt from this process. She became a charter member and held the position of vice president when the chapter was chartered. Carol Ann King Ellis was born in Gary, Indiana, and graduated from Central State University in Wilberforce, Ohio. She married and set forth on a life of travel throughout the world for many years, and finally she returned to a community where she could become active with an Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority chapter. Carol and her husband were stationed at Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland and crossed the paths of the sorority members from the interest group. Carol was honored to join the small group of women and became a primary recruiter. She held the office of secretary at the time of chartering. Carol currently resides in Fairfax Station, Virginia, with her husband. Laura Bell Elizabeth Loper Hope is a native of Cecil County. She graduated from Morgan State University, formerly Morgan State College. Laura Bell held the position of Assistant Secretary when the chapter was chartered. She currently resides with her husband in Newark, Delaware. Joan M. Jones was born in Frederick, Maryland, and graduated from Morgan State College, now Morgan State University. Joan retired after 30 years of service with the state, then returned to work as a clinical social worker for 7 years. Joan resides with her husband in Havre de Grace, Maryland. Shirley Lee Painter Lilly became a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated at Bluefield State College in West Virginia. As a matter of fact, Mildred Gore Stansberry, who was mentioned earlier, pledged Shirley's undergraduate line at Bluefield State College. Shirley held the position of financial secretary when the chapter was chartered. Shirley Lilly became an Ivy Beyond the Wall on July 1, 1997. Janet Wilkerson Peoples graduated from North Carolina College, now North Carolina Central University in Durham. She moved to Joppatown, Maryland, and was immediately met by 2 sorority members. Althea Stark and Doris Carey knocked on her door one evening because they heard a new Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority member had moved into the community. Janet became a member of the chartering group and held the position of assistant treasurer at the time of chartering. Fanshawn Peters is a retired educator with the Harford County Public School System. Unfortunately, our path of research on Fanshawn came up short. We continue to inquire in order to improve our records. Sarah W. Roy was considered the mother of the interest group and later Xi Delta Omega chapter. Sarah was born in Clearfield, Pennsylvania. She graduated from Howard University in Washington, D.C., where she was proudly initiated into the Alpha chapter. Sarah Roy worked tirelessly behind the scenes to assist Mildred Stansberry, Cynthia Laurie, and the interest group in chartering Xi Delta Omega chapter. The chapter celebrated Miss Sarah Roy's 70-year-plus membership in Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority by designating a chapter scholarship in her name. Sarah W. Roy became an Ivy Beyond the Wall on July 23, 1993. Viola Jones Scott was born in Enfield, North Carolina, and graduated from St. Augustine College in Raleigh, North Carolina. Viola was employed by the Harford County School System until her retirement after 30 years of service. She returned to Enfield, North Carolina, and maintained constant communication with her former students in Harford County. Viola Scott became an Ivy Beyond the Wall on February 23, 2013. Althea Brockington Stark, a native of Charleston, South Carolina, graduated from South Carolina State University in Orangeburg. Althea did her fair share of recruitment for the interest group members and held a committee chairperson position when the chapter was chartered. Althea and her husband currently reside in Baltimore, Maryland. Audrey L. Giles White was a native of Amelia, Virginia, graduating from Virginia State University. Audrey's husband was relocated to Harford County by his employer, and after a short while, Audrey joined him in Maryland. She was later recruited by the interest group and held the position of treasurer when the chapter was chartered. Audrey Wright resides in Aberdeen, Maryland. Anita Williams hailed from East St. Louis, Illinois. She graduated from St. Louis, Illinois College and was employed by the Harford County Public School System. She moved to Harford County with her husband when he accepted a position at Aberdeen Proving Ground. Anita was also recruited by her AKA sisters and helped to charter the chapter. Anita left the chapter when her husband accepted a position in Korea. Anita Williams became an Ivy Beyond the Wall in 1999. The group was small but was committed to ensuring the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated presence in Harford and Cecil counties. Using our founders as an inspiration and guidance, they focused on the mission and how to promote families, communities, youth, scholarships, and high moral precepts. We humbly thank our 19 dedicated chapter chartering members who stayed the course and persisted over a 10-year period to charter Xi Delta Omega chapter, Alpha Kappa Alpha, Sorority Incorporated. To give support, love, and care to people everywhere.
been 93 years and we're still standing.